Thank you, Rabbi. Good afternoon and welcome. We come here today because of a sad and awful situation going on in Ukraine today. We come here to stand in support and solidarity with the people of Ukraine. And as we do that, I want to thank United Interfaith Action, the Inter-Church Council of New Bedford, and the Greater Fall River Council of Churches for putting this walk together. And they chose the route and the day for a couple of reasons. One, today is May 1st. It's International Workers' Day. That's celebrated around the world. We know in our country, Labor Day is the first Monday in September, but around the world, International Workers' Day, where we're called to pause and celebrate human rights and the rights of the workers. Also, we're beginning this walk at a church that has Polish roots, and we're going to end it at a church that has Ukrainian roots. Again, showing the symbolism of what's happening in Ukraine and how different people are responding. And today, at this parish, we're going to focus on some of the Polish response to that. I do want to acknowledge a couple of folks that are here with us today. That won't be speaking. Our district attorney, Tom Quinn, is here with us. We have different people from across the region as well. I want to thank our police department who is going to be leading us on the walk. And on that, just with the logistics, when we do finish the short program here, we're going to head out down to Winthrop Street and follow the lead of our police department. We're going to cross Plymouth Avenue, go down Globe Street, go down South Main Street to Rockland Street. We're going to walk by St. Stanislaus Church, where they'll be having some songs as we walk by, and other people will be joining the walk there. And then we'll end at St. John's Ukrainian Church on Center Street with a program and some speaking there. As we go through the walk, if you do not have a sunflower and would like one, we'll have someone handing them out at the end, as many as we have. And also, as we do go through the walk, we ask that we do it in a silent walk, remembering the situation and the suffering that is going on in Ukraine. And now, to begin our program, we're going to begin with a song. So, Shana.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a power button here.
Right here? Is it on?
Yeah. You probably know this song if I had a hammer, but I changed the word land to world because I wanted to make it international. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I hammer in the evening, all over this world. I hammer out danger, I hammer out warning, I hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this world. A bell
now the mayor of the city of Fall River, Mayor Paul Coogan.
Obviously, God is with Fall River today to give us a day like this. It's a great day for a walk, and it's great to have everybody out this afternoon. I have a proclamation that I just want to issue today. We ask the residents of Fall River to stand in solidarity with our Ukrainian community and the citizens of Ukraine who are defending themselves against an unprovoked and unjust invasion by the Russian Federation that began on February 23rd. That must have been a Russian. We ask the residents of Fall River to support all who are fighting for freedom and democracy in the Ukraine and remember the innocent lives that have already been lost. The invasion continues to inflict widespread destruction, suffering, and loss of life. This proclamation not only condemns the Russian Federation, but also commends the Ukrainians for continuing their fight for freedom. The city of Fall River stands in solidarity with the people of the Ukraine in their fight for freedom and applauds them for their strength, courage, bravery, and all citizens should express their support for those facing this unjustified attack on democracy and freedom today and every day of this conflict. We ask all the citizens of Fall River to keep President Zelensky and the people of Ukraine in their thoughts and especially in their prayers. I, Paul Coogan, Mayor of Fall River, do hereby proclaim May 1 Support for Ukraine Day. Thank you all very much, and I hope we enjoy the walk. Thank you.
And now our mayor is going to present the proclamation to Father Roman, the pastor emeritus of St. John's Ukrainian Catholic Church. Next, I'd like to call upon our state senator, Michael Rodrigues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That was very, very, very nice. And thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Cantor. And thank you, Father Rob, for opening your church and allowing us to gather here as we open our hearts and we open our thoughts and we open our prayers and we go on this silent vigil march, thinking and praying for our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine. And I want also to make an announcement that with the help of my colleagues, Representative Carol Fiola, Representative Paul Schmidt, Representative Alan Sylvia from Fall River, we were able to secure in the last budget $10 million to assist the Ukrainian refugees. So that we can open our doors, open our arms to welcome them, to provide clothing, to provide food, to provide housing, to provide diapers, to provide whatever is necessary as they have fled that atrocity that's happening in their homeland. We are all welcoming them with open arms. Thank you all, and God bless.
And I also do want to also present to Father Roman a resolution from our state representatives to the same effect, standing in solidarity with the Walk for Ukraine and a commitment to helping those around the world, from our state representative, Carol Fiola. Next, I'd like to call upon Joanna Barker, a member of the parish here at Blessed Trinity, who's been to Poland several times, to speak about some of the efforts going on there.
Good afternoon, and welcome to all gathered here today in support of and in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Over the past 2 months, we've been witness to tragedies and horror like most in our generation have never seen. Homes and hospitals turned to rubble overnight, families separated, displaced, and scattered around Europe and the world, children orphaned with no home and no one to return to. These tragedies that we witness today on the news and on social media from a world away evoke memories of a time and a place that family and friends of many of those gathered here today would remember with heavy hearts, including my own grandparents and my own dad. Heavy hearts because yet again we see another peaceful, beautiful, and independent nation reduced to ashes. Our hearts, love, and prayers go out to the people of Ukraine. As Polish Americans, we see the images from Ukraine, and we can't help but relate in so many ways. We see Mariupol, and we remember Białystok. We see Kharkiv, and we remember Warsaw. And remembering our own history, we are determined to help those who are living the nightmare our families lived over 80 years ago. I have always been so proud to be a daughter of Polish immigrants and honored to call Poland my second home. I have never been more proud of my homeland as I have been over the past few months. We see the aid that Poland and so many other nations are providing the displaced of Ukraine on the news, but it is the stories from family and friends in Poland, the personal stories that are so uplifting. Over social media, I have seen cousins and friends in Poland go to the train station in Warsaw, leaving strollers, clothing, toys for children whose entire life had to be quickly packed into a tiny backpack that they could carry. Friends sending offers of homes for up to 12 people, including any family pets, which may have also made the journey. Offers of hot meals and free transportation to train stations across Europe have flooded these pages since the war began. All these acts of love and generosity are on a daily basis and keep multiplying. We see our sister parish of the Polish National Catholic Church outside of Kraków, Świętej Barbary, led by Father Budacz, which has turned into a center of mass distribution of clothing, food, personal hygiene products, and more for refugees crossing the border. Trucks from all over Poland and even Europe are on a daily basis bringing pallets of food and supplies and are always met with a smile and a thank you as the volunteers know that the need is great and unfortunately will only continue to grow. On an almost daily basis, Father Budacz will send a message on Facebook asking for an item which would have been impossible to cross the border with, such as a crib or a baby bathtub. And within hours, if not minutes, there is a reply that one has been sourced. This past week, to celebrate Easter in Ukraine, following a traditional mass said in Ukrainian, there was a picnic held for refugee families and volunteers, where local vendors brought bounce houses, popcorn, and cotton candy machines in order for these families who have been through so much to enjoy some laughter and much-needed fun. The parish also holds several Ukrainian language masses weekly for families to continue to be able to worship in their native language. Father Budacz, his parish, and community are truly God's work in action. In remembering and honoring their own history, the people of Poland have become a shining example of generosity, compassion, and love for the entire world to emulate. It is only natural for Poland to be being so deeply rooted and acutely aware of her own history that her people would reach out to their neighbors in their time of need. As today we see Mariupol shelled, just like Białystok, it will one day be reborn. And as we see Kharkiv attacked, like Warsaw, it too will rise again through God's grace and the perseverance of the Ukrainian people. We often hear that history repeats itself, and usually that phrase infers a negative connotation. And although we are seeing history repeat itself in the most cruel fashion at this moment in time, we will one day see that history come full circle with the liberation and rebuilding of Ukraine. As Poland celebrates her own Constitution Day this week, we hope and pray that Ukraine may soon yet again come to have their peace and independence among their nation. And as we look around today, a half a world away from Ukraine, let us not forget that despite our own different backgrounds and religions, we have gathered here today as one in solidarity with our friends in Ukraine. Our different backgrounds do not matter today as we gather with a common purpose and belief. We believe that peace through God's love will prevail. Many of us who have gathered here today arrived as strangers, but we will leave today as friends and a community in support of Poland and in support of Ukraine. Thank you.
Now I'd like to call upon another parishioner of Blessed Trinity who's been to Poland many times, Jessica Miranda.
Prior to 2 months ago, you might be hard-pressed to find people who knew where Poland was, let alone where Ukraine or even Kiev was on a map. But for some of us, our eyes were glued to the news any way we could get it 2 months ago. I, for one, was stunned by what was being shown on my screen. Was this really happening? Immediately, my thoughts were, how could I help from thousands of miles away? Within a few short hours, I had received numerous text messages with web links on ways to support Polish organizations already ready to support the Ukrainians that were now arriving along the 332 miles that separate our two wonderful countries. For most, they cannot really comprehend what is taking place in that area of the world. Those of us with ties to these countries know all too well what this truly means. Growing up with strong Polish identity, I knew that my family came from the Rzeszów region of Poland, which is just less than an hour away from the Ukrainian border. I grew up knowing that life in the area during communist times were difficult for my relatives. My grandmother, or babush as we called her, would tell us stories of our relatives there and how difficult it was for them to live in a country controlled by the former Soviet Union. Multiple times my family would box up items and ship them to our extended family in Poland to help make their lives just a little bit easier. Items like coffee, tea, sweets, especially chocolate, household items that we took for granted, like toilet paper and Band-Aids. As a child, it was just unbelievable that you would have to stand in line every month for your ration of chocolate. Can you believe being a kid and not being able to have your bag of chocolate or getting your favorite popular toy at a local toy store? The letter we would receive back from our family, didn't talk about their hardships, but instead always wished for our health, wealth, and happiness. Thankfully, we, along with the world in 1989, saw that what many Polish people knew, that civil disobedience can bring and will bring about change. After the fall of communism, we hoped never to see a country deprived of their independence, especially any country that was under the former control of the Soviet Union. 10 years later, after the fall of communism, I had the opportunity to spend my summers in Poland and to see with my eyes all the stories that I was told growing up. One could see that the older generation having a harder time adjusting to life, while the younger generation kept embracing it with open arms. The older generation knew how to speak German and Russian, while the youth couldn't wait to practice their English as a native speaker. I was fortunate enough to be able to teach nearly 500 Polish children English as a second language multiple times during my summer, from the north of the country all the way to the mountains in the south and even the capital of Warsaw. These youth, ranging from elementary to high school, were so eager to learn from us and know what life was like. I spent many 4th of July with these kids, and they would explain to me and my fellow teachers what independence and freedom really means in their eyes. From these kids, there was always a recurring message, and that we must learn from the past and never let history repeat itself. Those youth that I helped to educate years ago are now today's young adults that are living by those words and helping to ensure they do their part and make their voices heard and be the faces we are seeing on the news protesting the atrocities that are taking place just to the east of their country. Those of us with ties to these two countries all know all too well what is at stake here. These young adults who were the last generation to live under communist rule know all too well what they and their families had to endure. They have shown the world how to be a citizen of the world. Through today's digital world, I have seen their efforts with helping and aiding those affected by the horrors of this war. I have seen them organizing marches and attending rallies to show everyone that it is not okay to take away a country's independence, and they refuse to sit back and be silent. Some have driven to the border to bring much-needed supplies to those mothers and children who left with little more than a suitcase and a favorite toy. Others have opened their doors to their homes to what were strangers, and when they had an empty bed or a spare room. Some even have tried warming the bellies of those displaced by canning jars of homemade soup to hand out and create soup pantries. while others have volunteered their time at local bus and train stations or refugee centers, providing resources to those whose lives have been turned upside down. Their quickness to respond and willingness to help should be an example for all of us here and the world to emulate. Sadly, we know this will not be over tomorrow, for some will be affected for the rest of their lives by these events. Let's stand in strength and solidarity with them today and to the last. Slava Ukraine.
Let us now pause for a moment of prayer. God, as we gather this day in support of the people of Ukraine, undergoing such suffering, violence, death, and destruction, we know you are with those enduring the horrors of war, and we pray that peace and justice will prevail. We are thankful for those helping to aid the suffering and the injured, both physically and emotionally, for those who are welcoming and providing for the refugees. As we prepare for this walk in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, inspire us to continue to act to support them in their time of great need through our prayer and through our action, with our time, our talent, and our donations, that we may act to help in various ways to ease the misery, suffering, and despair of those who are experiencing this unjust war. Let us now pause and remember the thousands of innocent lives lost in Ukraine. For these lives lost and all that we have prayed for, this we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Once again, welcome to St. John the Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church here in Fall River. I am Father Michael, the pastor of the parish, and I'm so happy to see all of you here. I'm so happy to see how Americans support our Ukraine in right now very hard time for us, the time of war with devil Russians. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you all. And we will pray, and we come together to be together, to show to Ukrainians in Ukraine, to Ukrainians in America, and to whole America and whole world, we are all together with that problem of devil Putin. And we will do everything what we can do, everyone on his own front here in America, to do the best we can, so we will win that war. Because if we will lose it, all Ukraine and all Ukrainians going to be destroyed. Because how they say, we don't want to see Ukraine or Ukrainians. They don't care. They're Russians, Greek, Jewish people. They don't care. They just want to destroy all of us. So thank you so much for coming.
O strengthener of hearts
and
lifter of spirits, grant
great
continued strength and courage
to the people of Ukraine.
O God of comfort and consolation, make your presence palpably felt to the people of Ukraine in their suffering, and grant guidance to the wider world that we may know how best to support them and come to their aid. God, hear our prayer.
O God, source of all strength and constancy, give courage and perseverance to those fighting against oppression in Ukraine. And help us with your resolve and solace to compensate those who have lost their homes and loved ones. God, hear our prayer.
O sovereign and merciful God, who commands us to pursue justice, help us to stand together in whatever ways we can to support the people of Ukraine as they pursue justice, peace, and security for their nation.
God, hear our prayer.
Thank you so much for coming.
In your image we were created, our God, our Maker, who discerns the intents of the human heart. Please inspire us always to honor your image in every human being and to remember to keep that divine command to love our neighbors and ourselves.
God, hear our prayer. Thank you so much for coming. God bless.
Oh God, we know that since the beginning, you have granted human beings free will. Nevertheless, we pray that the hearts and minds of those who are committing unspeakable acts of cruelty towards the Ukrainian people may have their hearts cracked open so that they may realize the enormity of the evil they are doing and turn from these ways of brutality.
God of compassion and mercy, teach us to imitate your ways, that we may extend our hands, our thoughts, and our deeds in compassion to all who are suffering in your world.
God, hear our prayer.
As people who believe that God answers prayer, we close our prayer time with this message of encouragement from the Baha'i Universal House of Justice on Mount Carmel, Israel, to the people of the Ukraine. Prayers and acts of service may seem like a feeble and slow response when weapons of destruction are fired. They are, however, the means by which, ultimately, those weapons will be silenced forever.
We would like to invite our bishop from Fall River. Please, Bishop, provide us. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm so glad to see so many of you here this afternoon and to show our support, our solidarity, our prayers, our concern for the people of Ukraine, for them to know they are not alone. One of the hardest things when you are facing evil and suffering is to have a sense of being alone. I think Ukraine knows that the whole world is with them. Even though we are far away, even though we can't be there to help them in person, but we are here to send them our love, our prayers, and our support, and even to send them our generous resources to help them with their really difficult situation they are in. I wanted to share with you a few thoughts that I heard from the Major Archbishop of Ukraine. We had a Zoom meeting this week with many bishops from the United States, with the Major Archbishop of Ukraine, his Beatitude Sviatoslav Shevchuk. And he spoke to us about his experience and the horrible situation in Ukraine that you all know how terrible it is. But one of the things he said was to really convey his gratitude to the American people for all the support that they are receiving. And the Church of the United States has shown tremendous support to the Ukraine. Just our own diocese, a small diocese, we have already sent over $250,000 to help Ukraine. The Catholic Church in the United States has sent over $100 million to help the Ukraine. But that is just a drop in the bucket considering the suffering and the need of those people. Especially right now, there is a tremendous need for food. People are actually starving to death. And the Archbishop spoke about what the churches there are doing. Many churches have become shelter. Parishes are a center of social service, feeding the poor. But he said he had just come back from a parish where the line of people were so long that he couldn't see the end. And at a certain point, they ran out of food. So they had to tell the people to come back some other time. Now imagine when you were starving and you were in a line waiting for food, and all of a sudden there is no more. And you go back with your empty stomach, hoping to find food. So my friends, today I'm here to show, together with all of you, our support for the suffering people of Ukraine. The Archbishop had told us that the expectation of Russia was that they would come to Ukraine and in a couple of days they would just take over and control everything. And he said he was second in line to be killed. If Russia had succeeded, he would be dead by now. And thank God he's still alive. And one of the bishops asked him if the situation will deteriorate so much, if we would come to a point where the bishops would have to leave Ukraine. And he said, never, we're never gonna leave our people behind. We're going to stay here with them to the end. We cannot leave the people who are suffering so much behind. So many people are dying of hunger every day. So while he was thanking us for all our support, he was also appealing for more help in all forms of help. One of the things he said is very difficult to get money to the church in Ukraine directly right now because of the whole banking system. He said one of the best organization that is right out there on the ground providing incredible service is the Catholic Relief Services. And he mentioned Catholic Relief Service by name. And he said because of Catholic Relief Services, then many people are being fed and many people are surviving because of that. We all know there are countless of organizations. You know, the United Nations is there, the Red Cross, and many others. So whatever each one of us can do to help alleviate the sufferings of those people. I wanted to tell you one final thing. Since the war began, every time that I celebrate Mass anywhere, and I just came from 2 confirmations in Eastern today, but I always pause before the Lamb of God at the time where traditionally we exchange the sign of peace to each other and shook hands and said peace. Now, what I'm doing, I'm asking people, instead of shaking hands with each other, let us just pause and take a moment of prayer and turn toward Jesus present there in the Eucharist, and let us ask him for the gift of peace. And I ask them especially to pray for Ukraine, for peace in Ukraine. So I do that every single day at every Mass that I say. So I hope that you will join me and everyone else here in continue praying for Ukraine and do whatever you can to help alleviate the suffering and save some lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. May God bless each one of you, and may God bless the Ukrainian people and give them peace and give them help so that they can survive. God bless all of you.
Your Excellency, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us and supporting us. And right now, I will give microphone to Pani Sofia, my parishioner.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, and I thank all the organizers of the Interfaith Church Council of Southeastern Massachusetts, Fall River, and New Bedford for making this event possible. I also would like to introduce a couple of organizations that are going to speak today. They're Ukrainian organizations. We have the president of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America from Boston, Mr. Vsevolod Petriu. He's right there on the sidewalk. And we also have members of the Ukrainian American Youth Association, also Boston branch, that participated in this walk. And I'll tell you a little bit about UKK, which is the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. It represents Ukrainian Americans throughout the United States and was founded in 1940 to provide aid for Ukrainian war victims and refugees. And in 1948, their advocacy passed the Displaced Persons Act of 1948, which allowed more than 200,000 persons enter the U.S., half of them Ukrainians. They have central offices in New York City and Washington, D.C., and continue their advocacy work and humanitarian work. So thank you for coming, Mr. Petriu. And now, I would like to introduce to you the president of the Ukrainian American Youth Association Boston branch, Nick Zozula. And just to give you, again, a brief history of what this organization is doing for our community. For more than 50 years, the Ukrainian American Youth Association has guided Ukrainian youth to become knowledgeable and active members of their Ukrainian and local communities as a whole. They have Christian and patriotic values and are ready to work for the good of the Ukrainian nation. All the chapters in the United States, we have 28 chapters over 12 states, are working, have set up a humanitarian aid fund. Today we have members of, young members of the Youth Association doing humanitarian fundraising here to my right. And I would like to acknowledge especially Tara Reed, who was part of our subcommittee and has worked tirelessly to put this fundraising event together for us. And I would like also to introduce again Mr. Nick Zozula. And I want to mention that our next speakers have been bringing fundraising materials to Poland and Ukraine, and they will explain to you their humanitarian effort in those countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Pani Sofia. Dziękuję. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. My name is Nicholas Zozula. I'm a second-generation Ukrainian American, and as Pani Sofia mentioned, the current president of the Ukrainian American Youth Association Boston branch. First off, I'd like to thank all involved for organizing this wonderful event, the Interfaith Solidarity Walk for Ukraine, and inviting us to participate here in Fall River. Thank you also so very, very much to our Polish brothers and sisters who have been so supportive, helpful, and loving to Ukraine over these past few months. I will speak mostly in English today, but I also would like to speak in a little bit of Ukrainian, if that's okay. Шановна президія, дорогі гості, подруги, друзі, привіт. Мене звати Микола Зозуля, я президент спілки української молоді Америки в Бостоні. Осередка Сум імені Василія Біласа в Бостоні вітаємо вас сьогодні. Побудуємо сильну Україну з мирним і плідним майбутнім. On behalf of the Ukrainian American Youth Association, which was first established in 1952 in Boston, 70 years ago, and organized to help educate our youth by the ideals of the motto, Bach i Ukraina, God in Ukraine. I send our warmest wishes to all of you who stand strong with Ukraine in her time of need. We continue to show our solidarity with the Ukrainian people as Ukraine continues to defend itself as a democratic and independent, free nation. Thank you. Our group is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded by Ukrainian immigrants in the Boston area who were displaced by World War II and upheaval in Europe as a result. Since we were first established, we have organized and educated our youth by the ideals of Ukrainian and Christian ethics, love of culture, and pride in our Ukrainian heritage, which have always been our core principles within our membership. More recently, like many local organizations, we have begun to work with the local diaspora and newer Ukrainians who have immigrated to the United States and set up their own organizations. Sunflower of Peace, Ukraine Forward, and the Ukrainian Cultural Center of New England, which has a table here today. Along with local communities like yours here in Fall River and private donors to fundraise in order to provide humanitarian aid and relief to the victims of Russia's horrible and unprovoked war against Ukraine. I must tell you, the response has been nothing short of amazing. There's so much help needed right now in Ukraine, and your generosity helps save many lives of Ukrainians who are heroically defending their homeland from Russia's aggression, as well as to help reduce the suffering of many displaced Ukrainian refugees. We appreciate your compassion during this painful time for Ukrainians all over the world. Our group is working diligently to get assistance over to Ukraine and Poland and in the hands of those who need it as quickly as possible. Several of our members, as Pani Sofia had mentioned, have traveled to Poland and Western Ukraine to bring aid directly there themselves. Yulana Nozel, Terry Reed, and with our friend Yuri Bohenik, who are all here today with us. We have fostered connections in both Ukraine and Poland through family and friends with various non-governmental organizations, as well as private individuals in our network in order to provide specific aid efficiently and quickly in the form of medical supplies, humanitarian aid, protective gear, and short-term funds badly needed for safe travel and lodging for vulnerable refugees. To date, I am proud to say that SUM Boston, UAYA Boston, has raised more than $50,000 via various fundraising efforts in only 67 odd days of this war. We work hard to try to help to maintain our treasured Ukrainian heritage, which Russia is attempting to take away and threaten, as they have so many times over the past century. 1918 after World War I, 1932-33, Holodomor, 1945 to 1991 during the Soviet Union era after World War II, 2014 during Maidan, and now again today. History is literally repeating itself right now in Ukraine. They are trying to bomb our culture away. They will not succeed. They cannot succeed. Ukraine is not Russia. Ukrainian culture, traditions, literature, art are without a doubt and most certainly never will and not be Russian either. So in closing, I know I only had 5 minutes. I want to make sure I'm within that time period. Дякую за підтримку. Thank you for your support. Пам'ятаємо всі, хто віддав своє життя за незалежність України. Дякую тим, хто нині захищає незалежність України. Переможемо разом і до кінця. We will win together until the end. Slava Ukraina!
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nick Zazula. I would like to invite to the podium Tara Reed, who is going to introduce her mom, and Mr. Pan Yuri Bohenik. Thank you, Tara.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Reed, and I'm a member of the Ukrainian American Youth Association's Boston branch. Thank you so much for all coming to this event today. Your support is incredibly important. And I would like to introduce to you all my mom, Terry Reed, and our friend Yuri Bohenik, who have recently returned from Ukraine and Poland, where they were doing humanitarian work and delivering much needed medical and safety supplies.
Speak loud because elderly people cannot hear you.
What a wonderful community. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us this opportunity to speak. I grew up in Boston. I'm Terry Reed, in the Ukrainian community, and have been a member of the UAYA for 45 years, or we call it SUM, Spilku Ukrainskої Молоді. My mother, a member. My grandfather, a member. My grandparents were born in Ukraine, and they met in France post-World War II. My babcha's village, Anna, was burned. It was in Ninovici, which is now part of Poland. It was burned by Russians. Her father, Vasil, was taken to Siberia and was murdered by Russians. My grandfather, Mihailo, witnessed his entire family being shot to death when he was 10 years old while he hid behind a stove by Russians. Later, he was also captured and sent to Siberia, yet was fortunate to be released, where he found his way to Belgium and then to France, where he met my grandmother. My grandparents worked very hard to preserve their culture here in America. They found a community, a Ukrainian community here in America. People who I'm fortunate to still know today. I've been able to hold my heritage very dear to my heart, and I share this with my own family. When I was provided with the opportunity to travel to Poland in March with my friend Uliana Nozel here, could you just put your hand up, Uliana? Uliana was born in Lviv. I didn't hesitate. She was going, she still has family there, and this was torturing her in the beginning. And so I immediately said I would go with her. At that point, we didn't know what we were going to do when we got there. So I didn't hesitate because this is what I was taught. This is what we as Ukrainian Americans have been prepared for, unfortunately. This is not a shock to us. We were able to travel to Poland twice. The second time we added Yuri Bohenik, also born in Ukraine, to our mission. We were also able to spend a day and a night in Lviv, directly delivering medical and military supplies. From our very first trip, we were fortunate to have Uliana's cousin in Lviv working with the UN and the Ukrainian government. We were able to establish many trusted contacts there. Supply chains, direct delivery routes to the military from Poland. Some of the missions we were able to accomplish and we continue to work on, aside from direct housing support for over 15 families, food and essentials to refugees and at centers, medicine, military tactical gear, protective gear, optics, uniforms, emergency trauma supplies, and MREs, which are meals ready to eat. We've also recently purchased 2 vehicles, both in order to run supplies from the border to the front lines. A most recent trip connected us with an amazing center in Mielec, Poland. Jaja Rezhemian Przystan Gotchinochi. I might have botched that, I am sorry. But it currently houses 125 Ukrainian refugees, and they need our help. They need your help in every way. I can't stress how unbelievable the Polish people have been. Everyone we met helping in some way, housing, refugee support, and even more impressive, running supplies to and through Ukraine to the front lines. There is no longer a safe route for tractor-trailer convoys to deliver supplies to the front lines. It's not safe for railways. It's not safe for airplanes. It's not safe for humanitarian convoys. So who's doing this? You and you and you. Neighbors, grandparents, sisters, brothers, doctors, barbers. Those are the brave people that are bringing these supplies in their small vehicles because that's the safest way. That is amazing. The Polish are amazing brothers and sisters. And internally, Ukrainians are doing the same thing. I beg you, please don't get tired of this war. Do not have fatigue. I beg you to share information at work, on social media, with your families. I beg you to join us to help fight this unjust war on innocent people. I beg you to fight for freedom and democracy because that's how you have it, because someone fought for it. I mentioned the Refugee Center established in Mielec, Poland. They're established by Ukrainian doctors. This center, we're continuing our efforts to support them financially with day-to-day operating costs, food, supplies, clothing, activities. They need counselors. There is much trauma there. There's much healing that needs to be done. Currently, there are 40 children between the ages of 1 and 18, mothers, elderly, and a small group of people who are deaf. And there are many ways to help us with this mission. You can donate financially. I have information for that I brought with me. You could even donate directly to the organization there, directly to Mielec, Poland. You can run supply drives on your own. And please continue to share information and speak out and share on social media as well. And pray. Thank you for coming out today. I'd like to introduce you to Yuri Bohenik, who joined us on our recent trip.
Thank you, Terry. Slava Ukraini. I want to share a little bit about my background. I was born in Lviv, Ukraine. My parents immigrated here in 1992, bringing our family over. And I was, along with my family and friends that came together, was welcomed into the Ukrainian community here in Massachusetts with arms wide open. I was privileged enough to grow up in a safe community, a place where everybody has their freedoms of religion, freedom of speech, and all the things that Americans hold sacred. When 9/11 happened, I willingly enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and served 4 years honorably and provided service to our nation. After my service, thank you. After my service, I came home and continued my service to our community here. In 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine for the first time, it struck me deep in my heart, and I decided to share information online, but I felt helpless because of how, as Terry mentioned, donor fatigue sets in, people stop caring because it's not directly affecting them. Well, it's directly affecting all of us. We, individuals with Ukrainian roots, have heard many times from our ancestors, grandparents, great-grandparents, of the torture and violence and barbaric acts that Russia took upon our people. It is dear and near to our hearts because we heard those stories, and now our fellow men, countrymen, are living those horrific acts. We must not forget where we came from, and we must continue to fight. We must keep coming together as unified people and continue to support Ukraine. When Terry and Uliana asked me to join them, obviously I had to ask my boss, my wife, if it was okay. But she knew it was coming. She knew who I am. She knew that I wanted to do more. Simply raising money was not enough. So we took the trip over there, bringing thousands and thousands of dollars in supplies and hand delivering those supplies directly to those in need. One of the things that I experienced while in Poland was extremely touching. And it wasn't the fear and the trauma in these children's eyes or the reactions of them being thankful for everything that we're providing them, that you're providing them, that all of our friends that support us are providing them. It was the simple act of me opening up my phone at a refugee center and trying to log into the Wi-Fi. And the banner popped up, and that banner said, "You are safe here." Imagine those words need to be written on a technology banner, somebody just trying to get their Wi-Fi. You are safe here. But that message resonated with me. It showed me how dangerous war is, how uncertain war is. You don't know when that missile is going to come down and destroy a residential building, a business, and kill hundreds of people. So I want to ask you to continue to pray, continue to fight for Ukraine, and continue to support these grassroots missions that we're doing. After we came back a few days later, on Monday when we came back, a few days later on Wednesday, I purchased my next ticket to go back over and to bring more supplies. I don't know if it was my parents or the Marine Corps or just our community that opened their arms to us and helped us when we were here for the first time in 1992. But the fight in me will never end. As long as Ukraine's being attacked, as long as our people need help over there, I will continue to fight, I will continue to raise money, and I will continue to make trips over there to help our people. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini!
Oh, you're going to do that first?
Yes. So we received at the Blessed Trinity Polish National Church 2 proclamations, one from the city of Fall River, signed by Mayor Paul Coogan, and a second one from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the House of Representatives, signed by Ronald Mariano, Speaker of the House. And we thank both elected officials for providing our church with these important documents. Thank you.
I want to welcome a group from Lady of Assumption Church in New Bedford, led by Jack Livramento, with his friends Shane Burgo, Giovanni Sequeira, and I'm going to help them too.
Very good, very good. Everybody, tell them blue sheets, page 2.
Oh, the song "Who Will Speak" is on your blue sheets, page 2.
And they go first? No, yeah. Well, okay. Are you doing the fourth one final right close? We'll do it all together. All together, okay. Yeah.
Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't?
Repeat together.
Who will will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak for the poor and the broken? Who will speak for the people oppressed? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak out against unjust wars? Who will speak for the country Ukraine? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak against innocent killings? Speak the truth about the evil being done. Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak for Ukrainian people? Who will speak for the living and dead? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak if we don't? Who will speak so their voice will be heard? Oh, who will speak if we don't?
Gentlemen, your voice is same range as mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea. Andrea, you around here somewhere? Here you are.
So good afternoon. And before we close with our final blessing, I just wanted to say a few words of thanksgiving and to share how this day came about.
Tell them who you are.
Yes, I will. My name's Andrea Shepard-Lamba, and I'm the Director of United Interfaith Action of Southeastern Massachusetts, also known as UIA. But before I share about how this day came about, I'd like to also recognize Congressman Bill Keating, and he is not with us here today because he's actually in Ukraine with the delegation from the United States government. And today with us is Congressman Keating's aide, Mike Jackman. So I just wanted to say a word of thanksgiving to you, Michael, and to Congressman Bill Keating, who represents New Bedford and part of Fall River, for his courageous stance and being with the government there with President Zelensky. So if you could express our thanksgiving to Congressman Keating. Thank you. So for those who don't know, UIA has been around for about 25 years and brings together faith communities to work on racial, social, and economic justice issues here in southeastern Massachusetts, in cities like Fall River and New Bedford. And today's walk came about because at one of our clergy caucus gatherings back in March, Cantor Shoshana, who's been leading us in some of the music today, at the caucus, she said, I think the clergy and the faith community should stand up and have a show of solidarity. And so from there, we extended the invitation to the Interchurch Council of Greater New Bedford and the Council of Churches in Greater Fall River. So I just want to thank all that have been pouring themselves into these weeks, the planning team, who've brought this solidarity walk together today. And it truly is an interfaith celebration and a show of the foundation of our faith that calls us into faith and action for justice together. Those of us who've gathered today who are Christian know that we've just celebrated Easter, which is a season that reminds us that death and destruction do not have the final word, that love, light, and liberation are ours to claim with each day and each dawn. Those of us here in our Jewish community have just celebrated Passover, a season that retells and honors and calls us to remember and reenact the story of the Jewish people moving from slavery and oppression in Egypt into freedom. And those of us who are Muslim who have gathered today, today is the final day of Ramadan, and they will break the fast this evening at sundown. And it's celebrating the 30 days of fasting and prayer for forgiveness, for mercy, and deliverance from all that is unjust and ungodly in this world. And even our Baha'i brothers and sisters have just celebrated a weekend full of a retreat about how our faith life is a path toward justice and action. So today is truly a calling of our faiths together for solidarity. And no matter what our tradition, we're all called together to be on this path together. And in closing, I would just remind us of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said we're all caught in this inescapable network of mutuality. We're in this garment tied together in a common destiny. And that if injustice is happening anywhere, it's affecting and happening and affecting our justice everywhere. So I want to call us to have this not be just a day of support, but really a stepping into a life and a path that our faith each calls us every day into, a path toward justice and liberation. So blessings to the Ukrainian community, and may it not just be a day of support, but a way of solidarity going forward with each day. So I'll now turn it over to our final prayer with Father Roman.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day of gathering together to raise up prayers to you for Ukraine. Ask you to end this unjust war and invasion, and to remember those that are affected, the victims, and our soldiers and our laymen who are perishing. They're giving up their life for the freedom of Ukraine. We ask you that you safeguard our Ukrainian independence and also grant peace throughout Ukraine, that we can enjoy the rest of other nations. Господи Боже, просимо Тебе, благослови український народ на Україні, пролини його від нападу Росії і чувай над ними, над тими, що страдають наші вояки і миряни, і просимо Тебе, збережи нашу незалежність і поможи, щоб Україна далі проживала вільна і незалежна. Now ask you to join me together the prayer of our Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you very much. God bless you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much, Father Roman. And now it's came time for Ukrainian national anthem. To je naš slavень, naš hymn. We're very proud because from all the centuries that anthem providing us fought to fight for our freedom. So nobody will kill Ukrainians or Ukraine. So let's together, we will sing Ще не вмерла України і слава, і воля. Ще нам, браття молоді, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, і покаєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. And also, as Ukrainians, or Polish people, or Jewish people, no matter what kind of nationality who came to this America, for us, this is a promised land. And we enjoy to be here. And we love that United States who gave us proper life, freedom. So we would like also to pray for America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her from above, from the mountains to the prayers, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming. Thank you, committee, for making this happen. As a Catholic priest, and as a citizen of Ukraine and America, whose family in Ukraine, every morning before I wake up, I check my mom is alive, my sister and brother-in-law, my nieces, and everyone is okay. So, God forgive me, but I will say this. If we will not kill Putin, he will kill us. Some politician says, it is not Russian war. This is Putin's war. But that army who came from the moon, 90% of Russians follow what Putin says. So we need to be very realistic. Who they are, what they want. They want to destroy us. They want to kill all of us. And after us, they will go to the Europe. And he says they would like to come even here. So we have to be very, very careful and know what to do. So please do everything what you can do on your front, on your step, wherever you are, the best you can do, so that war will be finished and we will have a peace. But if we will lose this war, we will lose life. We will lose all Ukrainian people and we will lose our country. We need to have a victory. God, give us that victory. God bless you all.